Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fawcett. Each week we interview experts in AI, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. In our show today, we look at personalization and B2B marketing using AI. I'm joined by Nathan Schlaffer, founder and CEO of MarketmateAI. Nathan, welcome.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, glad you could join. So just to get us started, can you give us a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about your experience with AI and how you're seeing the technology evolve over the last year or so?
Yeah, sure. So basically, my background has been in B2B marketing and it's software companies. And AI has always been a core part of the value proposition of a lot of software companies, but increasingly more so as more and more tools have AI capabilities built into them. As far as the evolution of AI, really we can go back to the 90s when AI first picked up with Deep Blue and IBM's supercomputer beating the world's chess champion, Gary
Kasparov, yeah.
Kasparov, yeah. And one of the things that really shocked people was, wow, AI can do some tasks better than humans can. But one of the limitations of those systems was these are expert systems that are really good at one thing, like chess. And then starting in the early 2000s, companies started investing in neural networks. That concept had existed for many years, but the machine learning, capabilities to learn from data and actually deal with messy and probabilistic information, which is the real world, we didn't have that capability until recently. And that's where AI really took off. And we were able to develop things like ChatGPT, which is essentially a neural net, it mimics the human brain. And it's able to predict text because it's ingested, billions of web pages and text data to be able to do that sort of thing. So my interest in AI has been for over a decade, but more recently, what I've seen is with generative AI and large language models, the ability to personalize and automate marketing content is more today than ever before with any other AI technology in the past, because now we have generative AI that can personalize content for specific audiences. And that's really the thing that got us started with MarketMate is what if we could build a platform that could learn your audience and personalize content for you as a marketer at scale.
Great. Yeah, personalization's always been a thing that we've talked about for years, but it's never, until now, it seems like the technology really wasn't quite there to get us to the place we want to be. Yeah,
absolutely.
So as you're thinking about this, and I know you're focused on B2B marketers, so what are some of the major challenges that B2B marketers are dealing with today and in creating compelling content, and then how does AI help them overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, great question. So a few main challenges. One is time pressure. B2B marketers today are under more and more time pressure to reach aggressive, demand generation goals, to churn out content faster so that they can demonstrate their thought leadership in the industries that they're marketing to. So one of the ways that AIs can help those companies, especially smaller companies that have limited resources like budget and personnel, is generative AI can be used to help craft content like press releases, blog posts, social media posts, advertisements, so that B2B marketers don't have to do it manually or just hire additional staff to be able to do it. They can use AI to create that content for them. The second thing is relevance. And I think this is really a game changer. There's this trend in marketing overall, but also B2B marketing, of hyper personalization. Is how do you personalize content for the different audience members? So in B2B, you typically have, a buying committee with a decision maker that may be at the VP or C level. You have end users who are maybe more technical, and then you have influencers or champions. With generative AI, one of the things that you can do today is tailor messaging so that it resonates with each different buyer persona or audience member. So it addresses their pain points, it addresses the keywords that they are interested in and the hot topics that they're concerned about. And then the third thing is really prompting's hard. Like millions of other marketers, when ChatGPT came out, I started experimenting with different prompts, but I realized that it's somewhat of an art and a science. You don't always get the quality
Right.
of output that you can use in a marketing context unless you really tweak the prompts or refine something several times. So one of the things that we're invested in at Marketmate AI is, hey, what if we could use generative AI and have all the prompting on the back end, so you can
Mm,
just describe your product, describe your customer, and the AI model can learn your audience and then tailor content for them.
mhm.
So those are some of the key challenges, and then how we're helping to address some of those at MarketMate.
Interesting. So it really is, and and I thought about this before. We talked for a while. People were really excited about, oh, we need prompt engineers, but the truth is, we need lots of people to use the tools, but not that many people are really going to be prompt engineers per se. So it sounds like what you're doing is that approach of moving the prompt engineering back a layer. So the
Yes.
the the application takes care of that problem, and then from the user perspective, they can just interact by setting the context and giving the basic information around what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Absolutely, Michael. I think you hit the nail on the head, is just making it more accessible, AI more accessible to regular marketers who frankly aren't prompt engineers,
Mm.
but they want the value of AI, for automating
Yeah.
content for them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and so that ends up being more of, and I've heard the term used, force multiplier, for a while. I mean, we talked a lot about productivity all last year around generative AI, but the truth is, until you can take the prompt engineering away and just allow a person to interact with the application in a natural way, that it's not really a force multiplier, or it is a force multiplier for a small part of your force. But this actually more democratizes it, so more people can actually get their hands in and do productive work with it.
I totally agree, and there's an overwhelming amount of AI tools out there, such that a lot of marketers
Mm.
and salespeople have that cognitive overload of, man, what tool do I use for my use case?
Yeah.
Our philosophy is, rather than having sales use AI in a different way, maybe to write those prospect emails, have
Hmm.
marketing use it for content, having a holistic platform and approach to AI so your organization can adopt it and you can have
Mm.
alignment across the channels. Because one of the big risks and challenges in B2B marketing, but also marketing in general, is message inconsistency. Is,
Yeah.
how do you have a consistent brand image and message
Hmm.
across different stakeholders? So if AI could remember your value proposition, remember your audience, then you're more likely
Mm.
to have that consistent content quality that marketers aim for.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, certainly brand consistency is something that that companies are very concerned about, and
Mhm.
that's difficult if you're just going out and using a publicly available GPT engine, because there's no way except through the prompt to control that and make sure that you're getting that consistent output. But it sounds like with a product like yours, a platform like yours, you can then get that level of consistency across your whole organization.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
Mm.
it's referencing your same audience and their needs and their pain points.
Mm,
Mhm.
that makes sense. So your platform is focused on B2B marketing.
Yeah.
And from a B2B marketing perspective, how do the content needs of a B2B marketing organization differ from B2C, from business to consumer? And what are those needs that are different?
Great question. So, I'd say one of the key differences is buying decisions are made in a buying committee in B2B
Mm,
versus, B2C. It could be more with one purchaser who's maybe making more of an impulse decision, for example.
mm. Right.
Also, in B2B, the transaction size tends to be larger. So you would need to
Mm, makes
involve
sense.
several stakeholders, maybe allocate budget for those decisions. So from a marketing perspective, you're going to want to tailor messaging for different members of that buyer committee so that they
Mm,
are able to get the information they need to make a decision. And I'm going to give an example with a company I recently worked with that was involved in, marketing collaborative robots to manufacturers. Right?
mm,
You've got the plant manager that's making more of those business strategic decisions and the efficiency of the plant. And then you've got the engineer, who has maybe a completely
mm,
different mindset. Is, what features and
mm,
capabilities does it have to solve my problem? So one of the challenges with using generative AI to tailor content or messaging for them is you're going to have to provide a lot of context for each persona, each audience
Right.
member is.
Right.
But rather than doing that, what if you had a platform where you had a drop-down menu and you can select, I'm writing to the engineer, I'm writing to the VP level, or I'm writing to this
Mm,
persona, so that it could personalize content for each person on the buying committee. That's essentially what we do. And then the second issue that I see or difference is with B2B, one of the challenges is they often have a direct sales team. Maybe with the
mhm,
consumer products, you have a big marketing engine where you market your product and people buy them at a retailer. But with B2B, you might have a sales rep who's new to your organization, new to your product, and you
mm,
need to teach them how to navigate the complexities of a B2B buying cycle with that buying committee that we talked about.
mm.
So how do you teach them to influence the decision maker to, develop champions within an org, promote the product?
Right.
And one of the things with MarketMate is we built this sales enablement module where the AI model understands your audience because we've trained it on your audience. It understands your
Mhm,
messaging. What if that AI model could teach your sales rep, here's how you write a prospect email, to this buyer persona. Here's some good qualifying questions to ask to uncover whether a prospect needs your product. And then here's how you pitch your product if you're doing an elevator pitch at a trade show
mhm,
or you're on the phone with a prospect. So our model also has the benefit of aligning sales and marketing and helping those newer reps onboard quicker by equipping them with AI generated sales materials that are relevant to your audience.
mm. I mean, so it sounds like a lot of the difference there is complexity, not necessarily of the product, but complexity of the decision process, right? That you're
Yes,
dealing with multiple personas. And so having the capability to tailor that content for the personas that you've defined lets you be more targeted and deliver the right information to the right person at the right time in the process.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense, and I think, certainly when you think about I like to think about personalization as almost, down to an individual, right? So it's individualization of that to get to, and that's sort of the difference between the way we used to think of it as purely segmentation, which was broad, right? And now we're talking about something where we can get it down to the role of that individual on the committee, on the decision process, and then make sure they really get what they're looking for. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like that would be that's a very powerful way to think of it, and also a way to really ensure that your thought leadership resonates correctly with the right level of individual in that decision process.
Absolutely, and that's top of mind for, like, the CMO or the marketing director, is, how do I create relevant and engaging content at the right point in the buyer journey so that it resonates? And ultimately, if you can generate their interest, then they're more likely to submit a form and become a lead, and it might
Mm,
even shorten your sales cycle if you properly educate the customer on the value of your product or service. And like you said, generic AI tools like ChatGPT or Google Bard or Anthropic's Cloud 2, they don't understand your audience
mm,
as well as a trained model like MarketMate.
sure. Yeah, because I mean, certainly those publicly available models, if you were really good at prompting, you could get there. But the problem, of course, is the time it takes you to try the different prompts and get that tailored down to the right place. Whereas you're talking
Yes,
about, I build these personas and I can just then input what I'm trying to get out of this and generate the content that's appropriate for whatever audience you're trying to serve. Yeah.
absolutely. So skip that time-consuming prompt design
So,
process.
yeah, so that really is a force multiplier then. I mean, that does increase the productivity of each of the individuals across that whole, organization. Yeah.
Totally. Mhm.
So you use AI, content, generation, personalization. So can you talk a bit about, and we mentioned generative AI, which is obviously, one of the hottest pieces of this in large language models, but let's dig in just a little bit about technology. So what are you using as a part of your solution? What do you think is appropriate in this environment? And then are there other processes or other AI capabilities that could perhaps add additional value as the solutions evolve in this space?
Yeah, great question. So we use several large language models. on our back end. So one is OpenAI's ChatGPT 4 model.
Right.
Another is Google Gemini. We're experimenting with Gemini. And we
Mm.
also use Anthropic. So we try to get the best of multiple LLMs in a
Mhm.
single platform so you don't have to choose and experiment between them. As far as what technology we're experimenting with, we are currently experimenting with design technologies for generating
Mm.
visuals and images for ads, for website content, for blogs. And we're also looking at video processing technology. Is
Mm.
hey, there's some text to video generators out there now that work pretty effectively. And
Yeah.
more recently, OpenAI announced that they had a a text to video generator
Yeah.
that's in beta right now. So we're experimenting with all the latest design technologies because the first step is, okay, let me get my messaging done, let me get my targeting done, and let me get my content done. But now, okay, how do we get it designed according to our brand guidelines? That's
Mm.
the next area that we're focused on.
Yeah, that's very useful. I think, I mean, I saw the announcement from OpenAI. I've been trying to figure out a way to get my hands on that one sooner, but as we know, it's going to take a little while. But I have played around with some of the text to video tools, and that's a really interesting way to enhance your content greatly with that, especially short videos and that sort of thing. So I think that would
Absolutely.
be very interesting to marketing, and that's certainly an evolution of where we've been with the tools. So yeah.
Definitely.
So, personalization, we mentioned a little bit before, but I mean, from a B2C marketer perspective, we've been talking about personalization for a long time now. We know that's
Yeah.
sort of segmentation based, not individualized, right? But, over the past few years, the technology's gotten so much better that it is finally, realistic to think of that personalization capability as much more targeted and narrow. So, how do you understand the unique needs of each of those prospects, and then how can the platform adapt to generate the content, the correct content for each of those personas?
Yeah, great question. So we have a four-step process that we call the buyer-centric AI model.
Mm.
And it spells an acronym called LEAD. So first, we have an AI model learn your buyer personas. So a buyer persona for your audience is like a fictitious representation of a customer and their, what are their
Mm.
pain points, what are their motivations, so that when copy content writers can personalize content for them, they have a point of reference. Like, here's who I'm writing to. So what we do is we create one or several personas. If you're a marketing agency, maybe you have a lot of different clients, and each of them have their own personas. So we use MarketMate to create the buyer personas with a
Mm.
few inputs, like what's your product, what are your customer pain points, what's the job title if it's a B2B scenario, and then what's the tech stack. Maybe there's something relevant about what technology they've adopted in the past.
Mm.
Once we create the different buyer personas, MarketmateAI remembers those, so we can personalize content later. Then we go to step two, which is enhanced messaging with AI. So the AI model is able to basically create a brand architecture. If you need help naming your product name, your
Mm.
products in a systematic, consistent way, it'll develop product name ideas for you. Then we go to product positioning. How do we position you as different than every other alternative in your market category? And then the third step is product value proposition. So we create a value proposition for one or multiple products. And this is particularly useful if you're a company that has multiple products, or if you have different clients and you're an agency with different products. So you can
Mm.
tailor content for each product or service and different audience members. Then finally, we get to the third step, which is automate and personalize content at scale. So we have a number of templates for press release, for a blog post, for a LinkedIn post.
Mm.
But the difference is once you use our platform, you're able to select, this is my audience. Here's, the value proposition, here's the
Mm.
tone, and then it will use those inputs to personalize the content, for that audience
Yeah.
using knowledge of your
Nice.
product or service. And it's able to do it. I had one marketing director sit with us and use it for 30 minutes. He was able to churn out 2 weeks worth of content in just a 30-minute session. So
Nice.
it's really, like you said, it's a force multiplier. It's supercharging content
Mm.
development. And then the final step is drive sales enablement with guardrails. The reason we use guardrails is one of the biggest concerns in marketing is, hey, what if we don't control the message or the brand image? What
Mhm.
if, we want to make sure that
Right.
whatever's published out there to customers aligns with our brand image and our brand messaging? So MarketMate, since we created the value proposition, remembers, hey, this is, how we
Mm.
describe our product and service in consistent terms. So the AI model is able to draw on that to create prospect email sequences. So if you have a newer sales rep, they have their email sequences they can send prospects. The system can also create qualifying questions. So these are some questions to ask a prospect to uncover needs. And then finally, here's your sales pitch. So using the value proposition as a blueprint, it creates a persuasive sales pitch. So if you're visiting an event like a trade show, they can have an elevator pitch for each persona that can stop
Yeah.
by your
Yeah.
booth. So
Hmm.
it's really a holistic
Interesting.
approach that we call lead to adopting AI throughout your sales and marketing organization. And I think that's really our approach that makes us unique versus
Mm.
generic AI tools that don't know your audience, or maybe tools that just do copywriting, but they don't learn your messaging, they don't learn your buyer persona, which
Mm.
we think is a gap in the market.
Interesting. Yeah. One of the things you mentioned earlier, and I now can see where this really fits in, is this idea that, we know that there's a lot of turnover in sales. And in fact, most of the data now shows that most enterprise sales reps or B2B sales reps are on about a 18-ish month cycle,
Mm,
which is, difficult to begin with. But then if you know that it takes about 9 months to get that sales rep productive from the time you hire them, then you add to that the time it took to hire them. So, you're without for 2 or 3 months, and then you've got 9 months to ramp up, and then you've got 9 months
yeah,
of productivity before you leave, right?
right.
So it seems like what you have here would be one of the ways, at least, to take a new sales rep and get them into the brand, into the product, and in a consistent way that would help accelerate that path for them so that they would or could be productive sooner.
Yes. Yeah, I think you hit on a key
Interesting.
benefit there is onboarding faster so you can get that productivity sooner.
Mm.
One of the big bottlenecks I see, especially in startups that I've worked for, is there's one or two people that are experts in the industry. They've
Mm.
been in the industry for a
Right.
decade. They know the product inside and out. They know the market. Maybe they're a founder, but their time
Mm.
is limited. And in
Yeah.
order for these reps to be successful, they need to be educated on who's your target audience, what's your talk track, what are some good
Mm.
questions to ask. So if you can transfer that expert knowledge to an AI model and then have the AI model train on a new sales rep and say, here's
Yeah.
everything you need to be successful, it'll make your onboarding much faster. You can do it in days rather than
Mm.
months or weeks.
Mm.
So that's one of the benefits that we have. And then the second one is as you're onboarding, one of the things that we've seen as well with sales reps is um, they really need training on exactly, what questions and what message should I be when I'm reaching out to
Right.
this prospect or that. And we've all
Right.
gotten, at least from a marketing perspective, those Slack messages. Do you have any collateral on X, Y, or Z? and we
Hmm.
and we are balancing 30 or 40 other projects or tasks. So
Right.
so how do we get to them? What if we could use AI to fulfill more of those requests? Because bandwidth
Mm.
is another concern. Startups are shifting strategies. They're expanding into new markets. How do we bring the sales team on
Mm.
board faster? I think that's going to be a differentiator and a competitive advantage for those B2B organizations
Yeah.
that can use AI for that.
Yeah, I mean, and if we consider that, a lot of times those products, there's multiple products, they probably sell to multiple industries. So there's so many more permutations of what you could need to know and ask and deliver and, and building the thought leadership around that or the content around that. So
Mhm.
that level of complexity makes that on ramp much more difficult to begin with. And so anytime you can reduce that would be great. And then the other thing, I guess, too, is the fact that this provides consistency even in things that I don't do very often. So, as we know,
Yeah.
you train somebody when they start, they don't use it for 6 months, they're not gonna remember whatever it was you gave them. But if you give them tools that provide that consistency, then you can definitely keep that in a way that can help make them more successful faster.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
I think that's a key part is remembering is you're right, once you context
Mhm.
switching is hard, especially when you
It
serve
is very hard.
multiple vertical markets,
Yep.
or
Yeah,
if
it's
you're an
hard.
agency and you have 50 clients and each of them have different customers, if
Yep.
an AI model can do it, it could really save you time.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that makes sense. So AI powered marketing. I might, in fact, funny. The first episode of this podcast was an AI for marketing conversation. So we, it's something that is one of the areas that adopted generative AI quickly because they saw the capabilities there as very interesting to what they did. Not just from content marketing, but other productivity gains as well. So
mhm.
it's crowded. I mean, there are a lot of startups that are going after this. So how do you differentiate your platform, your capabilities from all of these other competitors that are popping up?
Yeah, so I would say 3 things. The first is, we're tailored for B2B. We're the only platform that really focuses on B2B
Mm,
marketing and helping B2B marketers. So that's one differentiation. I think
mm,
the second one is really covering the entire marketing workflow from assigning your target market, understanding your buyer personas, to crafting your messaging, to building the content, to enabling your sales team. There's platforms that do one of those things, but
mm,
not one that does all of those things for a B2B marketing organization as well as we do. And the third thing, I think really it comes down to relevance and content quality is because our system understands your persona, it understands what pain points they have, it understands your value proposition. We're able to really align the message consistency
mm.
across the entire
Right,
org.
right.
So I would say those three
Mm.
things really make us unique in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I know when we first talked about what you're doing, the idea of brand consistency, which it comes up in conversation so much lately,
Mhm.
particularly for companies that are trying to use generative AI, but they're really just going with the public, access models, not
Yeah.
a product that's really tailored for marketing necessarily. It's difficult, and it really does come down to the individual. You're expecting the individual to maintain your brand standards and provide consistency when you really want that to be systematic, right?
Absolutely. You want
Yeah,
those guardrails in place so
yeah,
every team member can align with your messaging. Mhm.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So, as we kind of wind down a bit on this, one of the things that I love to get for for audiences is giving them some real life examples so they can, it helps you visualize how this could really help you if you can see that in the context of somebody else. So I was wondering, do you have a success story or two you could share about how a company leveraged a B2B marketing platform to content, to all these different things we've discussed successfully? And then what kind of metrics did they use to say we were successful?
Great question. So we worked with a company called Player Zero, which is their product release management software as a service
Mm,
company, and their head of marketing. We kind of filmed our demo on YouTube that your audience can see at our website marketmateai.com. But basically, what they were
mm,
able to do was in one 40-minute session, we were able to generate a press release. We were able to generate two buyer personas, a
mm,
LinkedIn post, a blog post, and all of the content for their product launch
mm.
in one 30-minute session. And one of the comments that Max, who's the head of marketing there, said is, "Hey, you could pay a PR agency a lot of money to
Yeah.
get this content together. And we were able to churn it out in 40 minutes." So one of the metrics that we use for success is cost savings. Is if you were to hire
Mm,
an agency, you're paying thousands of dollars. Our subscription is $99 a month, so very reasonable to get automated content.
mm,
And then the other thing that enables you to do is the opportunity cost of not having AI is huge. There's a study with McKinsey that came out that said teams that are able to adopt AI achieve up to 15% higher revenue uplift,
mm,
20% higher sales ROI. And there was another study by Spiceworks where they interviewed B2B marketers, and they said
mm,
marketers who use generative AI for creative cycles like content development are able to
right.
produce content 50% faster.
Mm,
So there's a
wow.
lot of positive ROI companies can get, and Player Zero was just one example. But we
Yeah.
have, a few examples and also 5 stars on G2, so people can check us out.
Yeah, nice. I mean, that is definitely I mean, just the idea that you're, 50% faster, that's a very impressive, incredible metric that certainly any content marketing team would be very excited about. And the
Yeah.
fact that you can not only just produce more content, but produce better content in that same, context. So yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
So we're running out of time. Nathan, I really appreciate you joining us today. Before I let you go, though, there's one thing I always like to ask, just to help the audience. Could you recommend, someone, an author, a thought leader, some other, mentor that's influenced your career that you think would be useful for the audience to know about and to actually, read?
Yeah, I would say Richard Branson's "Screw It, Just Do It"
Mhm.
is like a synopsis of some of the business lessons he learned throughout his life as, a successful entrepreneur. But one of the things that really stood out to me is him, proposing if you have an idea, like don't be afraid to take calculated risks,
Mhm.
because the best you can do is learn something new, and the worst thing you can do is fail. But that's okay. That's how you learn and how you grow. So I would say, people should be more open to trying, new journeys and
Mhm.
adventures that cause them to learn and grow. And you'll be surprised how far you go with if you take that venture and that
Yeah.
risk.
That's a great recommendation. I've seen Richard Branson speak a few times, and
Wow.
taking advice from somebody who started their first business when they were in high school, and somebody who at one point when I heard him speak, they had 200 businesses in their portfolio. So prolific, and certainly someone who has taken a lot of risks to get to where he is. So yeah, definitely a good recommendation. And for the audience, obviously, you guys should check it out. It's a good read, and Richard Branson, really interesting story. So Nathan, that's all the time we have. I really, really appreciate you joining me today. Really great information, some nuggets in there that I think will really help the audience get more out of their content marketing as they try to use AI and more effectively. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here. And if any of your listeners want to continue the conversation, we're always open to, visit our website at marketmateai.com. Be
Good.
happy to set up a free demo and call. So thank you for
Super.
having
Great.
me.
Thanks. All right. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining. Remember to hit that subscribe button. And for more on AI and other software research reports and posts, check out the arionresearch.com/blog and /research reports. And don't forget to join us next week. I'm Michael Fawcett, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.